that's not the final advice. For me, that wasn't the final advice. It was for a long time. And then I was like, you know what? I had a conversation with my folks one day, after, I was officially diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and we realized, like it was terminal. And
Mm-hmm.
we're on the phone, and I just thought, I hear the despair and the sadness and the hopelessness in their voice, that they can't do anything. And I just thought, you know what? Because I was kind of giving up too. I mean, really, I
Yeah.
mean, everybody told me, well, that's the kiss of death, man. You're
Yeah.
just, you've gotten lucky so far that it's over. And I just decided, you know what? I'm going to fight this thing. What I want on my tombstone is, he didn't quit until his last breath.
What's up, you beautiful beasts? I'm Katie. I'm on a mission to help humans become the best possible versions of themselves and to strive for overall health, mental health, emotional health, physical health, all of the healths, without ever having to step on a scale. I have had the privilege to talk to all kinds of different humans who've been through a plethora of experiences just being a human and existing. I believe that every single time somebody shares their story, at least one person listening will learn from it, be inspired by it, and maybe, just maybe, even change the entire direction of their life. These are the stories of humans unveiling their beautiful beast. Keep listening. This is the Unveiling the Beast podcast.
I've probably been on 25 plus podcasts this year.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I just
So,
recently started being other people's guest. And it's fun. It's
see, yeah,
fun.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it
I've
is.
gotten
It's nice.
so much experience now with people on my thing. It's the same thing when you're on somebody else's thing. At least the ones I've been on. It's a conversation. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So,
I have a great fear of, like public speaking,
mm,
especially when it's about me. Like to talk to my team or
yeah.
to talk about this or that, no big deal. But when you get up in front of people and you talk about yourself and you're extremely vulnerable, I get just freaked out. So I started doing the podcast to try to help me, kind of get over my fear a little bit. Because I've, with having terminal cancer, diagnosed several times, facing death's not a big deal, but getting
Yeah.
up in front of people and them being like, was this good or bad? Well, that makes me more nervous than,
Yeah.
well, going out. So,
Yeah. That's so funny. I mean, it's not
yeah.
funny, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of weird,
Interesting.
like public speaking is like the number one fear of all fears, like next to
Yeah.
heights and some crazy things like that. So,
Yeah. I
yeah.
took speech class when I was in college,
Yeah.
and every time it was my turn, I wanted to throw up. And
Oh yeah.
basically,
Oh, I hear you.
yeah, the way the professor graded us was there were five speeches that we had to do. Each one was for a grade, like you'd either get an A or if you didn't do it, you'd get an F. But if you did it, you got an A. So it was five speeches, and the last one, for some reason, I couldn't do it, so I didn't go. So I got a B in the class because I did the other four.
Oh
Uh,
well.
but yeah, it was terrifying.
It's
Yeah.
really terrifying, especially in college, with everybody being that age and that young and your peers and yeah, I remember
Yeah.
mine. That was rough, man. Golly.
Yeah.
I think I only had to do
Yeah.
three, so I was a little luckier than you.
That's cool. Yeah, I recently got a program. My I have a life coach and he
Oh yeah.
also puts out programs, and
Okay.
one of them is transformational speaking and storytelling. So
Oh.
it's basically teaching you how to um we don't necessarily get over the fears, but when you take yourself out of the picture and you realize that you're serving other people, then it's
Yeah.
easier to go up on stage. So I'm learning how to do it in that regard because I want
Yeah.
to go out and speak. I
Sure.
just don't want to have to pee my pants every time I do so.
I hear you,
Yeah.
and it's for me it's been like almost anything else in life that you're like super scared to do. The first several times you do it, you just freak out,
Yeah.
you shoot your pants and you have a cow. And then, like I've done like 25 of these this year. I don't get too uptight about them anymore. It's kind of like, well, this is the gig, and I feel like for me it's much more I don't know, less pressure, or easier, more collaborative, when it's
Hmm.
more of a conversation instead of you standing up in front of a bunch of people and it's all you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like that's a
And
bit
it's
freaky,
live.
all the light. Yeah, the lights are
Yeah.
on you, everybody's looking at you, and they're like, okay, well, we came all the way here to see you. What are you gonna say? So yeah, it's just
Yeah.
one of those things. But yeah, it's just first several times I did my podcast, or was a guest, quite nervous. But you know what? I mean, most of the time, if people understand and they know that you're sincerely genuine,
Hmm.
they're there for you. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's baby steps too. I mean, I used to be terrified to make
It is.
videos for my channel,
Okay.
because I would think that I would turn the camera on and everyone's watching me right now.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
got
know
over
that.
that, and
Yeah.
because I can edit everything. And then I told my friend, like, this is like 3 weeks ago. I told her, I was like, yeah, I used to be terrified of videos because I'd think everyone was watching me live. She goes, well, do you do lives on social media? I'm like, nope, scared to do it. She's like, all right, we're going live today. And she made me
Ah,
not only go live that day, which ended up not being that bad at all. But
yeah.
she made me sing because I'm a singer.
Oh
She's like,
my
you're gonna
God. Well, I
sing.
see. I see you have not a violin, but something bigger than that.
It's a cello. It's my
Okay, a
husband.
cello. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. He's
That's
learning how to
cool.
play.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
I have no musical talent except to pay my ticket and go watch. Yeah, that's what I'm
there
good
you
at.
go. Well, can you
Yeah.
clap?
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
There you
Yeah, but
go. You're
my
a drummer.
rhythm, my rhythm, my rhythm sometimes is, on my rhythm. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh well.
So yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and I
Oh
was
yeah.
intrigued by not just cancer survivor, but 3 times cancer survivor.
Wow.
Um, I've had a lot of death in my family from cancer, and so I'm always
Mm.
wanting to hear the stories of those who did survive it.
Yeah. I
So,
listened to bits and pieces of the podcast you did with Jake.
mhm,
Wow.
yeah,
That guy, man, he's full on, man. He's something. And that's the kind of guy I could be friends with.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, like I like
yeah,
those kind of people that are real, they're straight up, like they're gonna tell you how it is, but they're there for you.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one.
yeah,
And the one before, I'm not sure the lady's name, but she was kind of like a grief coach or something like that.
yeah. Lee Atherton.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was that was kind of interesting. I listened to some bits and pieces of that one too, and I'm like, man, because it was interesting to me because I was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer,
yeah,
and then like officially, and then like several times, like you have it, you don't have it. If you have it this time, it's over. And then I mean, it's just been every which way you can think. And so I've had to work through that kind of end of life
yeah,
experience, and what that's like to think, okay, well, what am I going to do with the last year that I have left? So yeah.
yeah. I don't. Did you hear? I know you said you just listened to bits and pieces, but did you hear me talk about Megan at all, my sister?
Was that your sister that she's like straight up full on, like tell you how it is? Was that her?
Yeah, yeah, the one who
Yeah,
died of
yeah, yeah,
cancer. Yeah.
yeah,
If I can send you if you want the 2 episodes that I interviewed her, when she was cancer free, and then I
yeah.
interviewed her again after she found out she was stage 4. Um, uh, at her first chemo. So it
Right.
was two completely different episodes, and they were so close to each other. So, but she was the one that was like spunky and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Some people
So,
just have that perspective on things, you know? I kind of like take the information, absorb it, have to think about it, I have to kind of like weigh my options and then, and then I get into this period of like I'm indecisive and I'm not sure what I'm going to do in this gray area, and then I make a decision, man, and then I'm just like full
oh,
on. I'm going for it, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, it's I've I'm 40, 47 now. Gosh, but in the last 4 or 5 years, what I've learned, about my life and myself, it's more than I've learned in, like the previous 40, more or less, you know?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
were
I
all
mean,
three cancer diagnoses in the last 5 years?
yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like you have it, no you don't. You have it, no you don't. You have it, no you don't.
Yeah, it
Wow.
exactly. It's like like the first time was, I was diagnosed with hip cancer, and I had been limping around is what I've been limping around. I'm an American. You can probably hear in my voice that, I kind of have a bit of a Southern accent, and a lot of my accent's gone because I lived in New Zealand for a third of my life, like
Hmm.
16 years. And, I traveled around. I was an IT guy, and I traveled around the States doing installs for big companies in the States. And then it kind of went international, and ended up in New Zealand. And so while I was working, I got an opportunity to start a kettle corn business on the weekend, and they didn't have kettle corn in New Zealand. So I started doing kettle corn on the weekends, and I mean they loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what? I haven't ever met a person that doesn't like farmer market kettle corn just made hot right out of the kettle. I mean, people go nuts for it, right?
Yeah. I do.
So yeah, I mean, I knew when I hit that one, I was like, I knew it was going to be the winner. I just knew, and so I was on, kind of on top of the world. Like we moved from doing the weekends, and then we started doing events, and then we started doing the big rugby games, and one of the ladies that was a manager at one of the cinemas was like, "We want this in the cinema," and then that moved us into manufacturing because we were just a hangout kind of weekend business,
Yeah.
But I mean, we were making good money, and so we moved into manufacturing, and like fast forward, I don't know, 14 years I think we've been in business. Um, Two factories, 15 staff, four popcorn lines, service all the supermarkets in New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, some of the Asian countries, kind of over in that area of the world. And I'm doing my thing, I'm a I was a workaholic, that was my baby. No
Yeah.
kids, no serious significant other, or whatever. And that was my thing, I was a workaholic, working day and night, and we were doing well, we were doing good. And then, it's that cliche as it goes. Well, shall I say, I'm around the factory, and I'm one of those guys in a small business. You got to be able to do everything.
Yeah.
You got to be able to cook. You got to be able to clean. You got to be able to order stuff. You got to be able to go sell it. You got to do a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
And so I started limping around the factory in like 2019, spring of 2019, and I went to my GP, and it's like, well, we think you've torn a butt muscle bending over picking up something heavy. Okay, makes sense. Didn't get any better. Then I go to another doctor, same thing, same thing, same thing. Finally, I go into the hospital to just have some blood work done, and the hematologist is like, Trent, something's wrong. You need to get an X-ray. And We bickered about it a little bit, and I said, okay, well, I'll get the X-ray, and then a week later, like I was saying, as the cliche goes, I got the call that changed the direction of my life.
Mm.
And that was that I had hip cancer, and I had about a quarter inch of bone in my pelvis area holding my leg on. Every step that I took, I was in danger of breaking my leg. If I
Damn.
broke my leg, there was no options. They were going to take the leg off. So it was like immediately go to the emergency room and you're checked in. And so that's how the saga kind of started. And it was back and forth over several months. It's public health care in New Zealand.
Hmm.
So, if you've had any contact with any government entities, we know that they don't do things very quickly. And so they were like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take some x-rays and scans and we're going to do an implant and we're going to take it out and then shove it in. And I thought, okay, well, fine. Well, about the third time through, they're like, this is 6 months down the road. They're like, Trent, it's progressed too far. We can't do anything. We're cutting the leg off. And I had a meltdown on that one. And I had figured out, I was in New Zealand, my folks were in the States. And at that point, I would usually have my folks on the phone. And my dad just stepped in. He said, like, Doc, we're not doing that. You're not cutting his leg off. This guy's a fighter. He's not a quitter. You don't know him like I know him. And if you give him a chance, he will figure out some way to make this leg work. And so doctor came back about a week later and he said, hey man, we can leave the leg, but I can't guarantee that it's going to function. I can't guarantee any feeling. I can't guarantee anything. All I can guarantee is that most of it will be there, and it's going to be shorter than the other because all of your pelvis is removed. So you lose some height on that leg, and it's going to be probably more like a stump than anything else. I wouldn't recommend it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a harder road with leaving it than just cutting it off and moving on. But I mentally I couldn't handle that.
Yeah.
And so they left it. They did leave it, and I had some functionality and I had some feeling, but not a lot. And I was uh I was bedridden 60 days straight. I couldn't get out of the bed for 60 days at all. I really couldn't even roll over, like even to go to the bathroom. um they would kind of get me in a position, like I was kind of like mummified, and they would like roll me over and roll me back, and I'd take care of my business. And I
Mm.
mean, like, I mean, the pain that I had was like if the aircon came on and it was blowing on my toes, I would be like on a 10 on the pain level.
Mm.
And it was just, it was horrific, and kind of going back to what you were saying, I thought, like we're done with this. It's 4 months in the hospital straight, with everything in the recovery, and I got out and a couple weeks hanging around, and I was going to the factory doing my thing with my business. My folks left. I'm back at work. Next scan, pancreas, lung cancer. Boom, boom. I'm just
At the
like,
same time?
yeah, yeah. Same scan, both of them. Yeah. So the deal with that was the pancreas cancer is obviously way more serious. And so I had the surgery. Then COVID hit kind of in between that. That was like early 2020. COVID hit. And so we were locked down in New Zealand like caged animals. It was pretty
Mm.
rugged. And so going to the hospital, like no visitors, no nothing.
Yeah.
You're all by yourself. It's pretty rough. So I had the pancreas surgery, and when they gave me the debrief, they were like, "Well, congratulations, you don't have cancer." And I'm like, okay, well, like what was it?" And it ended up being a blood clot.
Oh,
And
damn.
yeah, and so yeah, so they cut out half of my pancreas, and the spleen is closely associated to the pancreas. And so, they took both of those out unnecessarily. And in public health care, there's no ramifications for a misdiagnosis. So let's take the high road. Let's take the high road and be happy that it wasn't cancer because
Yeah.
with cancer it's less than 5% to make it. And so, it's like, okay, well, I realize that the rest of the time that I'm here on Earth, that it's going to be, my health is going to be compromised, but I'm here. I'm here. So I had the lung surgery. That went okay. And the orthopedic surgeon was kind of like my overall surgeon, if you will. And he was kind of facilitating things since I had the hip cancer first. He kind
Mm-hmm.
of facilitate things, and he got me in with the good doctors and the preferred ones. And so he found out, he knew that I was in hospital for the lung thing, and he said, "Hey, look, we're gonna there's a wire that we put in to hold your leg from ticking up north, and we think that's the cause of the infection." I had chronic infection in my hip from the first surgery, and I had about 6 surgeries to try to clean it out. We never could get it.
Mm.
Major antibiotics, IV antibiotics, all sorts of stuff, right? So this leg, like dragging it around for almost a year, killing me. Well, no one was there, no family, no nothing. And I just said, yeah, okay. I mean, I'm hopped up on drugs from the lung surgery. I said, okay. So, a few days later, they did the leg surgery and they removed the wire. And, you know, um, I found out doing some of these that having a few kind of props is helpful, like for people that are
Yeah.
looking. So just to give you an idea, okay, if you look at that, you can see that that's kind of the normal hip,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see that my hip is totally gone. Now, what they did is they put that little wire in, and they thought that was the cause of the infection, right? So they went in and they took that out a year later. Down the road, it wasn't the cause of the infection, but it actually, then there was nothing to hold the leg. And
Right.
so what happened was over time, the leg became this. So, just to give you kind of an idea of what it looks like, you can see where the hip would be
Right. It moved.
and then where it ended up.
Yeah.
And I kind of was joking with my doc, and I said, "Hey man, eventually this is going to end up in my throat, and I won't even need a toothpick." And he's like, "Possibly, possibly." And so that put me on another course of things, and they had a junior surgeon do the surgery, and that caused a lot of bladder issues with me, like thinking I got to go to the bathroom and I don't, and up and
Mm.
down multiple times a night and going to the bathroom all the time. And it created a hernia. And this is what they call a surgical hernia. So if you see that,
Wow.
it's amazing. You can kind of see where it's sealed up.
Yeah.
But that right there is actually my small intestine. And I didn't have any issues like internally. But obviously, visually, anytime you go to the pool, you take your shirt off, people think you're a
Right.
freak. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was, one of the results of that surgery. And so then, I got through all that, and then my next scan, no, 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 no. This time you really do have pancreas cancer. And I'm thinking, oh no. So when they found it, let me see if I can find this thing. When they found it, it was about that big. It was, and then it grew it grew in a few months, and they're like, Trent, this isn't really aggressive, and we have some time to figure these things out. And like, so when you go to the doctor, like it's a month or 2 months before you see somebody. And you go and like in the waiting room there's like 30 or 40 people deep, and you get like 5 minutes, and this is the difference between public and private. And
Right.
so in 4 months it grew to that. So that was growing into my stomach. And I was like, I gotta I gotta see somebody privately. This is not good, like I was having trouble eating, and I was having pain in my stomach all the time and all that. So I went to a private doctor, and he said, look, your latest scan shows that it's growing in your stomach, and we won't do anything for you. And I'm like, well, I've been talking to the doctor about, like radiation, and he wanted to do surgery, but we did surgery the first time and it wasn't right. And, I don't want to do surgery
Yeah.
again. And yeah, so um he just said, look, there's nothing I can do for you, and you can go home. And I just said, so no surgery, no chemo, no radiation, no nothing. And he said, well, yeah. And I said, so, I understand the statistics, which are less than a 5% chance with treatment. And you're telling me to go home with no treatment and I may make it. And he said, Trent, there's nothing I can do for you. And, that was, the realistic kind of wake up call for me that it's over. This is over. And so I went to a private oncologist as well, like, and he gave me a year. And so I came back to the States. And and at that point, I had been living in New Zealand and been overseas so long that I didn't know about like the Affordable Care Act and things. And basically more or less is, you can get insurance, you can get health insurance even with pre-existing conditions, because before that you couldn't. Like,
Right.
we've all heard these, sad stories about somebody that didn't have insurance, they didn't have enough money, and if they had the money, then they could have lived, but they didn't have the money, and well, they didn't get treatment and they died, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to be one of those to my folks, come home, bankrupt the family, and still die. And I thought, well, what's the better of the two? Should I, stay in New Zealand and die and, probably get shipped home in a box? Or should I come home and, we do all this treatment and I bankrupt everybody, and then we're not only broke, but we're sad? So I just thought, well, so I found this, talking to my dad about, what had changed through the years, and that I didn't know being overseas so long. And I thought, heck, man, okay, well, let's give this a go. And, I did some research and did my thing, and I got back here. And by that time, gosh, the tumor had become the size of a
Mm.
softball. And so I, I talked with the doc, and I just told him all my concerns. And he said, look, man, look, we got some pretty good machinery here. If we don't do this, you're going to die soon. We better do this. And so that was a pretty easy decision.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so I I did the radiation, had to wait 3 months, long 3 months, and there was no evidence of cancer after that. And so I did that, and then a few months later we decided that we were going to do immunotherapy, and I did that. And so that kind of backed up anything, because obviously I had some cells hanging around going
Right.
wherever we didn't know where they were going to go. And so immunotherapy I thought was a much better option than chemotherapy for me. And and so then, I was like, okay, well, I still have this infection in my leg. So I went to a guy here in Arkansas, and we got a plan together, and we tried some antibiotics and some drugs that they didn't have in New Zealand, and we beat the infection. Because if you've had a chronic infection, then almost no orthopedic will operate on you. Because what I've been told from them is about 80% chance that even if you don't show infection, that it's going to happen, right? It's going to show back up.
Mm-hmm.
And and so most doctors won't talk to you. I went to Andy Anderson. They didn't have a plan for me. I'd gone to Mayo Clinic. They didn't have a plan for me. And and so, I just kept going, and I finally I got over this infection, and I had I had the lab tests and the biopsies and the aspirations and all this stuff. Excuse me. And I found this guy through my little network that had been in Arkansas, that was actually at Mayo Clinic, in a different branch of Mayo Clinic. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what he specializes in, is doing these hip implants and these knee things that no one else will do, that are a total mess and everything. And so back in July, I had a massive hip implant done, which is pretty much, let me see if I can find this thing. Pretty much this would be the largest, most complex hip implant ever done in the world.
Holy shit.
18 hours
Wow.
of surgery. Okay. It's like 7 or 8 screws. Those are going across to the good part of my pelvis. And that's what I had left on this side, and all that stuff. And then the next day I had the rods put in, and there, one of those is a rod back there. And so, basically what happened was, after the hip surgery where they took the wire out, I was on this kind of a shoe. That's like 4.25 inches. I mean,
Yeah.
like, that thing's huge. And then previously I was on that. And so I'm kind of almost back to something like that now. And I'm in recovery, and doing my rehab and doing my things, and
Yeah.
getting back, because my number one thing is, well, if I'm going to stay here, I kind of feel like I have two things to do: share my story for inspiration and hope, and I'm getting off these crutches. I am tired. I've been on crutches 4.5 years. I do not want to be on these crutches any longer.
Yeah.
It, yeah, I mean, just carrying your food, carrying your plate, carrying your drink, carrying whatever.
Right.
And so, you know, um, I've gone from being fully able to disabled for quite a while, and I'm just trying to get back to some of the simple things that people take for granted in life. And so did I, until I realized it was gone. That's what happens a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you how, and like assuming it has, how has this changed you, like as a human?
Golly. I mean, I used to kind of think I was tough. I used to kind of think I was resilient, but this pushed me to the edge of everything. Physically, mentally, emotionally. I just I mean, I was at my wit's end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of like to give people a bit of a background, and there's a lot more of other things that have happened and things. Um, but gosh, I like to say, you know what? It, some tips and tools and things that I tried to use, and realize that I've learned through this journey, which are, for the first couple years, I really, I took the doctors at their word. I listened to
Yeah.
the experts. They knew what was best. they knew the right things to do, but really they didn't. I mean, they know what they've learned in school. They know what they've learned from their patients, and they have a few minutes with you, and like these are life and death decisions, and you get 10 or 15 minutes with these people.
Yeah.
And what I learned was, you know, that is just that's not the final advice. For me, that wasn't the final advice. It was for a long time, and then I was like, you know what? I had a conversation with my folks one day. After I was officially diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and we realized, like it was terminal, and
Mm-hmm.
we're on the phone, and I just thought, I hear the despair and the sadness and the hopelessness in their voice, that they can't do anything. And I just thought, you know what? Because I was kind of giving up too. I mean, really, I
Yeah.
mean, everybody told me, my orthopedic, my lung doctor. I mean, they're all like, well, that's the kiss of death, man. You're
Yeah.
just, you've gotten lucky so far, but it's over. And I just decided, you know what? I'm going to fight this thing, because if I give up and I'm gone, I'm going to go out like a wimp. And I'm just not going to do that. And what I want on my tombstone is, he didn't quit until his last breath.
Mm.
And I just decided, I had this, I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna, I have no chance. I have no chance. But, like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to do but just go for it. And so that's what I did. That's what I did. I did the best I could with the situation I was in. I changed my diet as best I could. And I tried to eliminate the negativity that was going on in my life, with negative
Yeah.
thoughts or people, and that was a big thing with some of the negative people that were in my life. I had to eliminate that. And then, the mental thing was, like, well, how are you going to get yourself out of this hole? And it was like, well, listen to positive things. And so I would, I get on the internet, and I would look up stories, about somebody that had no chance to walk again, or to beat cancer, or to beat pancreatic cancer, or like when I watched a movie, I watch a movie and I think, like I watch Braveheart. Well, man, I'm Mel Gibson. In my life, I'm Mel Gibson, man. I
Mm.
am gonna win. I'm gonna
Yeah.
win this thing. And so, I had to change my mindset, because, I had been beat down and down and down for so long. And, I just took what people had said and accepted it, and just went with it. And then, I just had this thing where, like, hey, you know what? I just had a bit of an awakening or an epiphany or whatever you want to call it. And I say, you know what? These guys don't know me. Just like my dad said. Just like my dad said that, with the whole hip thing. They don't know you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I appreciate your advice, man. I thoroughly, I'm appreciative of everything you've given me. But, like, I'm the final call on this. Not you. I am. And so, that's what I did. And I just started fighting. And, every day, I mean, like, I was like, I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't do anything. I love to work out. I love to lift weights. I like to do that thing. I've always been athletic. I've always done that. I just started out with yoga,
Mm.
like a couple of little stretches a day. And oh my God, I mean, how bad it hurt, and the pain. But, it's like a couple minutes, and then I go back to work. I just, I'd be at the factory, and I'm like, you know what? It's yoga time. And I do my thing. And then I got to where I could do a few minutes at lunchtime. And then I could do a few minutes later. And I just took, those little bits and pieces and tried to build them and make them into something. And when you have this big diagnosis, right? You have this diagnosis, you're like, you got a year to live. It's like, okay, well, now I'm on days. What am I going
Right.
to do with my day? What am I going to do with my day? And, and so I begin to break things down into that whole thing, that we all hear about day by day,
Yeah.
and that's what I did. And some days it wasn't even day by day. It was more like, quarter of a day, half a day, just get yourself to lunchtime, man. Just get yourself to the end of the day. Just do what you can to get yourself to this meeting or this appointment or whatever. And and just trying to have those little wins and those little things. And I think for me, I'm really hard on myself and really critical. And it's a good quality and it's a bad quality when you overuse it. And at the end of the day, I lay in the bed when I'm going to sleep, and what would I think about? I don't think about, did I do enough today?
Mm.
Did I do enough? And for me to try to have a good night's sleep, it was like, I did. I did do enough. I did do enough of this, or I did what I could. I did what I could to get there. And the part that's in between where I can't control it, or I don't know, or I'm ignorant of the knowledge or whatever, the grace of the
Yeah.
God, or the grace of the higher power, or whatever you call it, is what I would say. Hey, like, I'm doing all I could today, and I just need a little help, to help me. And for me, it was, these little steps. And I was like, I'm looking way up there, and I got this goal that I'm trying to get to that's unachievable. But if I just take one step on that ladder and I'm going up, then I might get there. And so, that's I don't think there's, like, this big thing of rocket science about, how to, cure this thing. I think it's simple. I'm just an ordinary average guy. I'm not anything special to anybody. I'm not super smart. I don't have super athletic talent. I've just got, I got some good common sense about me. And, I just don't quit. And so, that's just, that's a little bit of the kind of, I guess, maybe where I'm at about where I'm at, today.
Yeah. I'm I'm just so in awe of your story.
Are
I
you?
think, yeah, like I tell people the point of this podcast is if your story can just inspire one person, then mission accomplished. I think that person today is me.
Oh, well, good. Well, good. You
Yeah.
know what? That's why I actually do these. I mean, obviously, I mean, there's no money involved in this. We're doing this out of the good of our heart,
Hmm.
And that's one of the things that changed me, was that, I was career driven, I mean, 20, 30 years ago, right? Things aren't like they were today. I mean, it's the information age. There's stuff everywhere. And it's like, 20, 30 years ago, it's like, you do your job, you go to work, you make a lot of money, you're successful, and that's the definition of success. And I got
Right.
caught up in that. I think we all did. I mean, we're probably close to the same age, and
Hmm.
and we got caught up in that thing. And I think all this has happened to me, has realized, okay, that's cool. That's cool to have a business and do that. But you know what? I mean, for me, it's like my newfound, thing in life is, did I help somebody? Did I inspire somebody? I mean, you have no idea, like, what's going on in that person's head that you're talking to, or that's
Yeah.
just walked by. And if you spread some joy and some hope and some inspiration, because God, man, I mean, with everything going on in this world, it's sad,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's really all I'm about. It's like that's the only reason I started, is to tell my story and just say, hey, you know what? We do this thing and we help somebody. We did our job. Just we have one person. We did our job.
Yep. I think this is I'm not going to be the only one that this has inspired for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, cool. Well,
And
cool. Good.
I mean,
Good.
so much comes up like emotionally for me, especially because of Megan.
Yeah.
Because I feel like she was you. She just didn't, she fought till the end.
Yeah.
Um, and she had a YouTube channel that logged her entire cancer journey called
Okay.
Megan White Has Cancer.
Okay.
And her last video, like you can tell she's not speaking. She's so skinny. And they're like, we're gonna try this next treatment. I'm like, and then the next week she died. But like that's what I mean. Like the fight till the end,
Yeah.
she could hardly breathe. And she's like, yeah, we're gonna try this next thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Never
That's
gave up
freaking
hope.
awesome. Yeah.
Never gave up hope, right?
Yeah.
And like that's what it is, it's about like going out with your dignity and your pride. I mean, if that's what it is, to say, you know what, man, we all got challenges. We all got things, we all got terrible, terrible things that happen in this world. And like I'm gonna do my best to beat your ass,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm gonna do. I mean, like, I tried it. I tried giving up. I thought about taking my life. I'm like, this is so sad, but I had a friend that had done that, um, about 8 or 9 months before I got diagnosed with cancer. One of my best friends, his restaurant went tits up, and he just lost it, and he went out in the woods, and he offed himself.
Hmm.
And it's like the pain that you cause someone from that versus like going out fighting, there's no comparison. There's no
Right.
comparison because like your memories of Megan, I would think are probably, they're probably a bit melancholy and sad, but like you have some good memories of that. Like she went out like a killer,
Yeah.
instead of somebody that goes out the other way, and it's hurtful. It's so
Yeah.
hurtful,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And just an aside, I have my dad, I've been taking care of my dad for the last 10 years.
yeah,
And he's been sitting in his room every day for years just waiting to die. And I'm like, it's complete opposite. And so it's interesting to see the two extremes. You
yeah.
know, someone who's given up a long time ago and he probably has a lot of life left in him. His parents lived into their 90s and
Well,
so um
yeah.
yeah, so it's interesting to see the two extremes and
It
knowing which one
is.
I want to be like, you know.
Exactly, exactly. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of the takeaway from the our discussion today is, like we're all going to get to that point. We're
Yeah.
all going to get to that point, and what are you going to do? You going to give up? You going to be a quitter,
Mhm.
or are you going to fight? Are you going to go for it and do the best of what you have, and do that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have one more question for you,
Yes.
that I ask everyone at the end of every episode, and that is if you had one piece of advice that you could give to the world, if you haven't already given it, what would it be?
Yeah. Even I would say, even when the chips are down, even when everybody tells you that you can't, you still can. There's still a chance. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop fighting. Take it day by day. Just try to win every day. Try to win as many situations each day as you can, and you'll come out on top, and you will get there.
Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, Trent Brock signing off. Until next time. Palaka.